Hello, welcome back to the ministry, and today we are talking about arrested in development. What is it to be arrested in development? Sometimes it's more of a feeling than it is an actualization. As I've gone through the years in my life, it's almost like you have particular points and times that you would consider milestones in your life. Prom, homecoming, graduation, going to college, uh, getting married, having children, all of these types of things. If you are searching for your own career, the process that seems like the direction that you should be going, or the process that should be the automatic route to get there, doesn't actually come together in a way in which you would think. So you kind of feel like you're arrested in development. When I was in high school, I went all the way through my high school years, never got in trouble for anything. The most mundane thing, and I remember this in like my middle school days, I would get detention for something stupid. When I say dumb, I mean, let's say I'm sitting here and the trash can is just outside of my arm's reach. So I reach over to throw something in the trash can at the point of dismissal from lunch. I got detention for 2 days because I was ever so slightly out of my seat because of the fact that I reached over to throw something in the trash can. Detention for 2 days. Yeah, that's the petty stuff that would happen to me. 6 weeks before graduation, I caught a stomach bug, and because I used all of my sick days my senior year, because my mother came home from the hospital, then she was sick, and I was helping her out, and then dealing with her passing. I missed more time. So when I actually needed the time for myself because I got sick, they threatened me with expulsion, and it was 6 weeks before graduation. 6 weeks. So I always kept on running into problems like that. Went to college. Normally it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 years for you to graduate from a regular degree. And they explain that to you when you first come in for orientation at college, that it's going to take anywhere from 4 to 6 years. I was in college for 5.5 years. And I should have graduated because I was literally 2 semesters from graduation. I needed to complete 2 semesters of classes. At the time, I was exhausted, and what ended up happening was my grants ran out. I had no access to my last Pell Grant for that last semester. So I had to write this whole long list of what have you in order to do that. And then they actually called me back about a year and a half later and said, we will reinstate you because we see a grace that we will give you an award of another $20,000 in order for you to finish up your graduate year. Everything fell through. So it's that arrested in development where it's not that you aren't doing all the steps, crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, but for some reason, it's not coming together because something happens just before the manifestation of that thing to come together. Arrested in development. Rite of passage. You get your driver's license when you're a teenager, or you start working when you're a teenager. Parents said refused to allow me to get the work permit. They didn't want me to work at all during that time frame. So because they didn't want me to work at all, I didn't get a working permit, nor did I learn those early stages of working from between the ages of 16 and 17. Get the work permit. Nope. Both parents refused. Most people learn to get their driver's license then. I didn't learn to get my driver's license. I didn't even start the process to learn to get my driver's license until almost, 26? And even yet and still, it wasn't 26, it had to have been about 24. Even yet and still tried it. Right at the point in time, it didn't come together. Went through the courses, went through the driving school, went through all of that. The person that was supposed to help me go through the process, it's like they became frustrated with helping me. Every time I got close to having some major accomplishment in my life, arrested in development, it never came to fruition. It's not that I didn't try. The basic rites of passage, whether it was driving a car, whether it was even learning to ride a bike, I never learned. Skate, no. Those basic things that come with growing up. And I was stalled out, arrested in development. When you are arrested in development, it seems as though no matter what it is that you try to do, you keep hitting a brick wall. I'm about 35 years old, and I've been working on a business endeavor idea, and I've been pursuing it for years. And it seems like I get to one level and it never crosses completely over into me making a profit off of that thing. Why do I keep it? Because God showed me this is what He wanted. Maybe I'm approaching it wrong. Maybe I'm doing something. Maybe the season wasn't right for it. But He's always giving me something to either enhance or grow the thing. So why it would not do what it's intended to do, something is missing there. It was what? Arrested in development. So what am I saying with arrested in development? That sometimes in life, you're going to go through seasons where things aren't going to work out in a way, in a format, in something that you believe should be working for you. Everybody does this. This is the sequence. Everything should work. It's the process. This is the sequence. Why is this not working? And you feel arrested in development because you know that things should fall into alignment. You know things should fall into place. you see everybody else doing, but when you do it, it seems to always, right at the point in which it should work, it falls apart. Right at the point which should be your breakthrough, it doesn't happen. Right at the point in which it should fall into place, it's arrested in its development to fall into place. What do? Do you remain faithful to that thing, or do you give up on that thing? Do you take a break from it for this season, or do you pray into it? During certain seasons of your life, the Lord will have you pray into and align certain things spiritually so that you know, okay, this is the direction in which He's trying to take this thing in which He wants you to put your hands on. And sometimes it still won't work. It'll be kind of like a Job season where it seems like I'm doing everything that I should be doing, but I lost everything in the process. Lord, what is this? Are you doing this in your own will and your own plans, your own desires, your own process, because you want to be able to be the one to say that you did it? Or also, God may be saying that I didn't want you to get that way. Yes, there's spiritual warfare that will come against you, that will create spiritual embargoes to prevent you from having certain breakthroughs in your life. Financially, business-wise, relationally-wise, all of these things. But God makes the decision that this is your time and this is your season for this thing to fall into place. I don't care who, what, or anybody that tries to block your ability to do something. It's going to happen, because God will say, now is a time for that, and I'm no longer going to allow this thing to continue to maintain a level of a blockage for this person. Because when you put your energy, you put all of this time in, you put all of this into the experience, you're like, I'm not going to go through this again. And God says, you will do it. You just got to do it with me. You may not have been doing it with God the first time. There are things that we do in life we want to make, set it, hit it, forget it, be done with it. That's it. And God will have you go through an entire process that you completed before or were that close to completing, and He'll have you do it again. Whether it's schooling, whether it's learning to ride a bike, whether it's whatever it is. Why? Because you didn't do it with God the first time. But this time He's saying, I'm going to give it to you this way. You're going to do it my way this time. You're going to walk with me this time. And as you're walking with me, I'm going to show you the way in which it needs to be done. So you no longer have to worry about being arrested in the process of the development of that thing again. Because I'm going to show you the route in which I want to take you. Because the narrow way is not as appealing as the wide path. There's a way that seems right to a man, the end thereof is death. We may feel like, I went through the process, I did this way, I did this the way it that the instruction said it's supposed to be done. And God's saying, I had a better way, a quicker way, and a more suitable way that I wanted you to pave that pathway. And it was going to be more of a blessing to you. But you didn't see that because you were looking for the easier route, the shortening of the process. And God's like, No, that's not going to work. Shortcuts don't always get you to where you need to go. And sometimes it does take longer for you to get to your end destination as you're walking with the Lord, because the Lord is trying to show you something in that process. This is why we go through processes of wilderness. This is why the Lord allows us to go through extended periods of time in places that we wouldn't particularly want to go, or we would have never chosen to be there, deal with those people, so on and so forth. It's a humbling. It's a blessing to the person, in which persons are people that the Lord has put you around because they were able to receive something from you that they wouldn't have gotten had they not been attached to you for that season. But the fact of the matter is, this is the sad part of the process of walking with the Lord. God will put you in places you don't want to be because He wants your presence to bless somebody else, whether the experience feels like a blessing to you or not. He will put you in dark seasons. He'll put you in something that no matter how hard you try to get out of that thing, Jonah and the whale, you're not going to be able to get out of it unless the Lord releases you from it. You're not going to be able to get away from those people unless the Lord says, okay, you've done what I needed you to do in this season. Now I will allow you to be released. And He will move you and remove you that quick. There are seasons of our lives that the Lord teaches us patience in those seasons, as it seems like we are arrested in development. We should have been past this point. We should have gotten here. We're at this age. We should have been more balanced. We should have been more developed. We should have been more. But would we have done it in our own strength? Would we have had a different demeanor had we gotten what we wanted and completed what it was that we thought that we should have completed by this time frame? If we got if we got to go to the homecoming, if we got to go to the first prom, second prom, I only went to one of my proms, and got to graduate from college, but was that where God wanted me? Had I created the business that I wanted to create? Had I developed the corporation that I thought that I needed to develop at that time? Doesn't mean that God won't give it to you. It just means that He needed to prune you, prep you, and prepare you in a different way than what you were doing, because you were doing it without Him. I honestly was doing all of those things that I mentioned without God, because I didn't find God until almost 9 years ago. This coming April will be 9 years. All of the things that I went through prior to that, I did without God. Yeah, I prayed a little prayer. Yeah, I did a little this. Yeah. But walking with God, I listened to a young woman the other day, and she made this great point in her video. Some of us, we will listen to God. God says, do this. We do it in that moment, and we take off running. But the woman did what the Lord showed her to do. The woman, and who she touched, jumped up out of their wheelchair and ran. But when she came back to the person, not 15 minutes later, they were back on the ground, upset. The fact of the matter is, some of us, in order for us to maintain the healing, the deliverance, the breakthrough, the shift, we need to have the coach, the prayer warrior, the people that are going to cover that thing, because that's what got you up into this point. How do you think that when you get the breakthrough, that you're not going to need to maintain that same energy to keep the breakthrough? That fasting, that prayer life, that reading your word, that listening to the word, that's keeping biblical scriptures in your repertoire, that all of those kinds of things. Yes, you're going to get busier. Yes, you're going to be around different people. Yes, you're going to be seeing life shift for you, but there's a level of maintenance that you're going to have to maintain, and consistency that is going to make these things work. Sometimes, and I've heard a lot of people say this, if you didn't get it then, you didn't need it. I may have not have gotten my fashion degree when I wanted it, but I guess I didn't need it right at that time. Maybe that's not where God wanted me. Didn't learn to ride a bike or to drive a car at that time because maybe that's not what God needed for me to have at that particular time. Or everybody else may have wanted me to get a job, but God was saying, I need you to focus here in this season. Whether it be during the season that I was in school and he wanted me to focus my energy on schooling, or whether it was the fact of he pulled me away from schooling and led me into building, whether it be the ministry or the things that came from those other elements. Because there are things that I put my hands to in the past 6.5, 7 years that had I've been working a 9 to 5 job, I wouldn't have had the energy to do them. How do I know? I worked a 9 to 5 job for 3 weeks in the middle of this process. And I remember I was doing what I was doing for my social medias. I was also doing my online college, and I was working that job. I crashed in 2 weeks. That third week of the job, I got sick and couldn't go to work for 2 days. Because I stretch myself. Sometimes God won't let you have that things because he knows that you're going to put your all into it and you will run yourself ragged trying to maintain with your own strength and energy. So it's that element of sometimes God will arrest you in the middle of development because he needs to slow you down. It's a phrase I always hear people say, that I will pull back the arrow. That the Lord will pull you back like he's pulling back an arrow, but you will shoot forward way faster and way quicker than everybody that seems to be moving past you. So sometimes you think that the arrestment of development was a punishment to you. No, it was a preparation for you. Because the things that you learned in the interim, you wouldn't have learned had you been doing something else, or had you been running it the way everybody else ran it. Had you been moving at the pace everybody else had been moving. To you, you may have felt like you were in detention. You may have felt like you were in isolation. You may have felt like you were, but when you get to where you're supposed to be, it's going to make sense why the Lord desired to arrest you in the midst of that development and keep you in certain places longer, have you around certain people, have you dealing with certain situations, because the things that you learned in that process was able to be a unforeseen blessing to somebody else. So It's the coming to that understanding that sometimes being arrested in the midst of development is a good thing. Sometimes it's a God thing. I don't want to belabor this point or keep going in it if I don't need to, but I just wanted to say sometimes we need to look at the situations that we're in and understand that you're where you're supposed to be, even though it doesn't feel like it. God's promised you this. God said that this was going to happen. God said that was going to happen. And you're sitting there like, God, you got me hyped up. You're saying this is my season. This is the this, that, and the other. But I still feel like I'm what? Arrested in the midst of the development. And God's saying, I didn't arrest you in development. I delayed your progress so that you could prepare and be more ready for it when it came. You sit there and you're in a season where everybody around you is getting married. And you're the one that's been standing for marriage and it hasn't happened for you yet. You're at that age. Everybody around you got their kids and their grandkids. And you sitting there like, God, I ain't even been married yet. What's going on? I'm watching everybody else, but nobody hasn't hit me yet. And you're the one that seemingly has the lifestyle that's set up for that. Meaning you're more prepared for that than a lot of people. And for some reason, that's the one area that you have not seen a blessing in. But everybody else has seen it. So sometimes the Lord will arrest your development because you have not come to a point or position where you're ready for it. Don't worry. You're just in preparation. At some seasons, it's like, now's my time. Now's my season. But everybody else is getting in it. It seems like you're arrested in development. I know it oh my goodness. And you're doing everything right. You're just arrested in development. Because when God does it for you, it's going to happen quickly, so fast, so sudden, that people are going to wonder, how did you catch up on all of that and get ahead of everybody else when we all were here and now you've caught up? God accelerates the time. God gives you back the time in which you've lost. You get a sevenfold return, and God returns back the time in which you lost, waiting for those things, preparing for those things, seeking out those things, going through your trials and tribulations, messing up in the season where you were in arrested development. And God said, I did that on purpose because I needed you to go through the process, mess up, fail, figure out the goods, the bads, the uglies, and all of these kinds of things so that you could help somebody else. So that you could see all the issues, all the problems, see it from all different angles. You did it 2, 3, 5 times, and he showed you a new way that you can do it. But guess what? Now you can give that information and teach somebody else with what you learned. How you can update that thing, how you can change that thing, how you can transform and transition that thing. And because you have something that other people don't, and it's the way that you do it that's going to make the impact that others need. Sometimes you are the package. You are the blessing. Remember, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. You are the Technicolor Dreamcoat. The thing that's missing is you. And God's got to develop the parts within you to be able to maintain you and maintain the blessing when he puts it on you. So you're not so much rested in development. You're being prepared for what you prayed for. And when God releases it to you, you will feel more qualified or able to handle it. And let's be honest, some of us will not still feel qualified to be able to handle or maintain that thing when we do walk into it, even though we've spent this extra time in our arrested and development stage, because it still will be something new. It still will be an adjustment period. It still will be, I need to scope out this land where I am in comparison to where I was or where I've been before. So understand that if you are one that also feels like you've been arrested in development, it's nothing personal. It's just a preparation period. Sometimes we feel like, why did we have to go through a level of isolation to this degree? Why did we have to be isolated in the area in which we were isolated in, instead of being isolated where we were being provided for at the level at which we felt that we should have been provided for? Because God needed to humble you, because God needed to prepare you, because God needed to show you the parts of yourself that you needed to clean up and clear up before He sent you into those places, spaces, and areas and arenas. He gave you access. He gave you the ability to do certain things, because when He opens those doors again for you, He needs you to run through them and remember the training that you learned during that period of time on both occasions, whether it was for business, whether it was for education, whether it was for spiritual warfare. All of these things need to be used when you get to where you're going. So the arrested in development was only necessary in order to prepare you to be able to walk into the blessings and the favor that God's preparing you for. A lot of times we think it's demonic delay, but sometimes it's God's hand saying, I'm just giving you a little bit more time, giving you more time, and the people that need to receive you more time to get themselves ready to be able to receive who you are. Because some of us, we a little bit fiery, and the people that we going to be dealing with, they might not be ready for that. So, I hope this bless you. This is Todd McCameron from LFPB Ministries. Until next time, bye-bye.